I'm gonna say, let's think outside the box. Maybe it's not just moving boxes around, but maybe we gotta come with other solutions. Maybe taking down the wall. You know, the issue of equity has been really bad in the past. This is how we've been building cities. The US is the wealthiest country in the world, and the wealthiest country has over 13 million children living in poverty. 13 million. These are the wealthiest countries in the world. The US is almost the worst of the 35 wealthiest. 1 out of 5 children living in poverty. And then you say, oh, but what can we do? Well, can you do South Korea, where they had the Olympic Games, is 1 out of 16. Denmark is 1 out of 37. So maybe you should say, okay, in Tucson, it doesn't matter what the US, but here in our city, we're really gonna bring it down. From the point of view of mobility, when people have a car, and here in some places, the city is growing so bad that it's gonna be totally unsustainable. If you continue sprawling the city, it's not going to be viable financially, economically, environmentally, in public health. You're forcing people to have cars. When people have a car in the US, they're spending $1 out of $4 on mobility. 1 out of 4. People don't have money to go to the university or for retirement, and you go to their home and they got 2 and 3 cars. They will spend only 5%. If they use public transit. That's why public transit is so important, and walking and cycling. There is nothing that the city government could do that would have a higher impact than allowing people to downsize from 2 cars to 1, or from 1 to 0. And that would be fantastic for the local economy. You know, the American Automobile Association says that the cost of 1 car is $8,500. A small car, $8,500. You buy a car for $30,000. You sell it 3 years later for $15,000. So just in depreciation, it was $5,000 per year, plus insurance, plus gas, plus so on. And this is going to be great for the community, because if people have $8,500 this year, and next, and next, and next, they're going to go to the restaurants, and they're going to improve their gardens, and it's going to stay in the local economy. The issue of equity, I worked in more than 50 cities in the US. I go to a city like Cleveland. I was visiting this neighborhood where the life expectancy is 64. 10 minutes away is 90. I don't know what is worse, that this happens. And it's not because it's Cleveland. You go to Washington and it's the same. You go to New Orleans and it's the same. I don't know what is worse, that this happens or that people are starting to assume this is normal. This is not normal. You go to this place and they say, oh, the people 55 is because they're lazy. It's because they drink too much beer. Why? Even if you had the money and wanted to buy fruits and vegetables, there's not even one grocery store. Instead, there are 4 times as many convenience stores as in the other places. They don't have parks. The schools are horrible. In some cities, we got 5 times more parks in one part of the city than in another part. 2. By the way, I'm going to be much faster with the other 7. Don't worry. Don't run out. We got a great opportunity. Tomorrow, I'm going to speak at the university. And in the lifetime, today we got 3.5 billion people living in cities in the world. We're going to go to 7 billion. And it will be very nice and civilized, where people walk and bike and use public transit. In the lifetime of the students of the University of Arizona, we're going to grow. We're going to double the population in cities. In the US, we're going to go by more than 120 million people in the next 40 years. So that means we're going to have to do between 50 and 60 million homes. So if that is going to happen in the US and in the world in the next 40 years, then let's analyze. What have we done in the last 40? Because if what we've been doing is good, let's just do more of the same. Well, in the last 40, these 8 guys have more wealth than half of the world. Imagine the political power and the economic power. This is how we've been doing cities around the world. We've thought that housing was just an issue of supply and demand, and we have been sending the poorest people to the worst places where there are no transit and no sewage. And we've been focusing on car, and not on people's happiness. And this is the kind of cities that we've been doing all over. And we haven't solved mobility. The more highways that we do, and the emerging countries like Russia and China and Brazil, they're doing exactly the same things. It's absolutely horrible, as if they had not seen that it hasn't worked. This is all of Florence, Italy, and one highway intersection in Atlanta at the same scale. By the way, the cities are not responsible on the amount of people, on the what, but yes on the how. How are we going to grow? These are 10 different ways, because people say, oh, in Tucson people don't like density. Because usually people think density are 40-story buildings. These are 10 different ways of having exactly the same density. You can have the same density with 5-story buildings next to each other than with a 40-story building every other block. So this is so much nicer, like Barcelona, to have 5-6-story buildings next to each other. This is what we should have along here, the tram. This is how we've been building cities. Is this what we're going to do in the next 40? Imagine if you are a child or an older adult or a person on a wheelchair, you are a slave to someone that drives a car just to go for an ice cream. So the last 40 years have really been pretty lousy. So what are we going to do in the next 40? We need to improve the cities that we have today and create great ones for many people. So it's time for change. And I know that change is hard. That's why we don't do change, because doing more of the same is easier. How do we make change? This is how we make change. This is how we will make change. Whether you are for or against, unfortunately, citizens can no longer be spectators. People tend to think, oh, people in Denmark, they bike is because those Vikings are so different. That's why they bike. No, they were not biking. The cars were taking over in the 50s and 60s and 70s, but in the 70s they had the energy crisis, the oil crisis. And when they had the oil crisis, they couldn't drive their cars on Saturdays or Sundays or both, so they started using bicycles. And they didn't have infrastructure. So in the Denmark and in the Netherlands, a lot of people were being killed. And in the Netherlands, they were doing these die-ins in front of City Hall every time that there was someone killed. And the newspaper were saying, you know, our children are being killed. And in Copenhagen, they were doing the same thing. So the first protected bikeway where the cyclists are separated from the cars was in 1982. And then cycling took off in Copenhagen. That's why now they are so happy. So when you're going to make changes in Tucson, 3 recommendations. The first one, change is not unanimous. Sometimes elected officials say, oh, but there is some concern. There will always be concern. If you want change to be unanimous, you have to water it down so much that it's not going to be changed any longer. Second, the general interest must prevail over the particular. When you go to any meeting, say the rule of the game is that everybody has to speak on behalf of the general interest. So when you say, are we going to widen the sidewalk and take out the parking? And people say, oh, but my business. Say, no, don't tell me about your business. Give me the same argument. Sometimes people say, monkey see, monkey does. No, sometimes people see and people do. We do sidewalks and we don't put benches. Or we even put nails so that they won't sit. Or there are no benches on the sidewalks. This guy had to sit on his briefcase. His friend actually fainted. And his wife is sitting on their baby. But when you got nice places to sit, it's kind of magical. All of a sudden, people in the middle of the winter, in the Moore's Theater, people don't even sit facing each other, but facing others. It starts to rain and they won't even move. Another symptom is sociability. We see people talking to each other. It's a good symptom. Another is diversity, that we see children, we see youth, we see older adults. We see wheelchairs. Another symptom, affection. We're affectionate, we feel at ease, if we feel good. Another symptom, high proportion of women. Women are more selective. If it's not clean and safe, they're not going to go. But these are symptoms. What are some characteristics of parks? One is management. But in most cities, they think management is synonymous of maintenance. No. Maintenance is maybe 20% of management. Picking up the garbage, cutting the grass. No, management is how to get grandparents and grandchildren doing bread in the park. It's how to have uses and activities. Management is having people walking and cycling and playing chess and having lunch and taking a nap. Management is getting volunteers but giving them the tools. Management is organizing citizen meetings when you're going to do a change in the park to get their opinions before, during, and after. Management is getting resources, human, physical, financial. Management is having safety in the parks. But safety is not like I saw in London, England, this, beware of the thieves. This is like an open invitation to the thieves of the city. Come here because this is a good market. You need a lot of police when the parks are empty. You don't need police when the parks are full of people. So think about it. The cheapest security for parks and public spaces are uses and activities. In most cities, it seems easier to find the millions to do the parks than to find the thousands to make it work. But we need those thousands to do the movie night, to do the knitting group, the walking group, to do those uses and activities. We gotta have access across the city. We gotta have activities in the summer, in the winter. So it's 52 weeks of the year, not just for the summer. So it's about that. If you know, this is when I'm talking about walking past, it doesn't have to be 4 miles. If you got a big park, it can be 4 miles, but you got a small one in front of the library, then you do one that is just a quarter of a mile, and you have different surface, and you count how many miles or kilometers each loop. It's about having painting and doing, you know, I was in Mumbai, and I said, what are these women doing? And they said, it's laughing yoga. They get on the circle, and you get on the circle, and then you start laughing and you get relaxed. You know, in Tucson, do you need small parks or large? Unfortunately, you need both because they satisfy different needs. We need a small neighborhood park because that is where we develop community. That's where we develop a sense of belonging. That is where we meet our neighbors. We also develop a sense of solidarity, so it becomes safer. Because if something is happening, we go out and help. But if we don't know anybody, something is happening, we close the door. But we're not going to be able to play baseball or soccer, so we need medium-sized parks. And we're not going to be able to go canoeing, so we need big parks. So at the end of the day, we need all of them. We need the small, the medium, the large. We need active, we need passive, we need contemplative. We need a citywide system. 4, we also need sustainable mobility. Who came walking today? Anybody came walking? A few. Everybody else too. Everybody came walking. Every single trip begins and ends by walking. I don't see any cars in this room. We walk to the car. We walk to public transit. We walk to the bicycles. Everybody walks. That's how we were created. You know, just like the birds, they fly, or the fish swims, and the deer runs. People, we walk. We walk, and we gotta make it safe and enjoyable for everybody. The youth in South Africa, or the older people. We walk in the summer, we walk in the winter, but we gotta make it safe. And this isn't safe. Yesterday, people driving cars killed 741 people walking. 741. That's more than a person every 2 minutes. That's not civilized. They're not accidents. Accidents is when they could not be avoided. Most of them could be avoided. They're incidents. Now there is a Vision Zero network in the US based on something that was developed in Sweden. He's saying people are not perfect, so let's build roads based on the fact that people are not perfect. And if we're going to improve walking, the pedestrians need to be a priority, and they're not a priority when we do sidewalks like this. Or when we allow the cars to park on the sidewalks. Or when we don't even do sidewalks, and we're telling this woman, you are a second-class citizen. If we're going to improve walkability, we need to have 20 miles an hour in all the residential streets. All of them. You know, when you ask people, do you want the street in front of your house to be 20 miles an hour? People say, oh, yes. Do you want the street in front of everybody's home? Oh, no, everybody's home, no. You know, why 20 miles an hour? It's not because 20 is plenty, sounds nice. And it sounds nice, but it's because people walk a lot more, and it's good for health. People don't like walking when the cars are going by at 40, 50 miles an hour. They do like when they're at 20. Also, people even walk differently. When they're at 20, people also walk slow, and they see a neighbor, and they chat, and someone is with the dog, and they talk about the dog. And also because if you get hit by a car at 20 miles an hour, there is 5% probability of being killed. At 40, it's more than 80%. And there are many, many studies that show exactly the same thing. That's why Seattle, what does Seattle have that Tucson doesn't? For now, they got 2,400 miles of residential street at 20 miles an hour. Last year, they approved 2,400 miles at 20. Why? Because they want to make it safe for everybody. So we should do it in Tucson as well. I mean, we put in front of the schools 20 miles an hour. Why? Because it works. But do we want children to be safe only in front of the school? These are not technical issues. We know that if we put a small island, we eliminate, in the crosswalk, we eliminate more than half of the incidents. Why are we doing crosswalk without an island? When we know that the kids they don't go in one light, then they have to stop. Older adults are being killed 3 times as many as the proportion of the population. And when we talk about sustainable mobility, not only walking, it's riding bicycles, using public transit, new uses of cars. I'm not saying that this is the end of the car industry, but the way we use cars is changing very, very fast. So we gotta think of what is the new uses. For example, older adults are terrified of losing their driver's license. Their impact is as much as if they are told that they have been diagnosed with cancer. It's not because they love cars, it's because they love mobility. Older adults want to age in place and continue visiting their friends and shopping in the same places. And now people say, oh, the autonomous vehicles, the driverless cars. You know, when you're in a traffic jam, It's not the driver, the one making the jam. It's the cars. So whether these have a driver or they don't have a driver, it doesn't really matter. So if we don't change